already, episode 5 of Stir Crazy. I hope everyone's doing pretty well. It's, lockdown is still a thing, boozing is still a thing, so I'm going to make a couple of drinks tonight. I put it up to a vote again, and what I'm deciding to do this time, as ever, is I'm going to do both. It was a 60-40 split, so pretty close. And for me, it's also just any excuse to make a daiquiri. But the Amaretto Sour did win. So, an Amaretto Sour, if anyone's familiar with this Disaronno, this Amaretto liqueur, it's almond, it's sweet, it's delicious, and it's a real guilty pleasure of mine. Most of the time, I would tend to drink fairly boozy, very spirit-forward drinks, normally stirred drinks. I do not at all have a sweet tooth. So, for me to like Disaronno is kind of unusual. This drink is very, very sweet, not very boozy. It's a sort of modern sour. So I have a tendency most of the time to work with much older classic drinks. The Amaretto Sour, nobody really knows when it was invented, but we know for a fact it's not a classic cocktail. Speculation puts it somewhere in the 1970s, invented in the US. And what the speculation as to why it was such a recent drink is that it did take a very long time for Italian spirits to catch on in the US. Italians are known for these beautiful Amaro drinks, right? These bitter liqueurs. I tend to keep my Amaro around here, so things like Cynar, Ramazzotti, Fernet Branca. These are really, really sort of traditionally very bitter Italian liqueurs, which don't tend to suit a very Western palate. Anyone who's had a Negroni will know that Campari has a very bitter element. When Disaronno came on the scene, Amaretto liqueur, kind of changed everything, and it much more suited a Western palate. So it's believed the 70s was kind of the time when Amaretto sours were invented. You can kind of tell looking at this bottle, right? It's pretty gross. That would definitely look somewhere at home on a 70s back bar, right? So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to follow a recipe by Jeffrey Morgenthaler. He is a bartender from the Pacific Northwest. He claims, and it's a bold claim, he makes the best Amaretto Sour in the world. I'm inclined to agree with him. So the key difference with his Amaretto Sour is he acknowledges that Amaretto is not a very strong, sort of bold spirit, right? It's very, very, very soft, very sweet. It doesn't really hold up well to being put into mixed drinks. So what you need to do is somehow bolster it, take an edge off the sweetness, but also give that drink a bit of oomph, a bit of something about it. So he complements it with a bit of overproof bourbon. Not a lot, but there's going to be some overproof bourbon in here. This comes in at 50.5% ABV, or as the Americans refer to it, proof, which basically doubles the ABV for some reason. So 101 means that if you halve that, you get the ABV. So it's a 50.5%. This is a shake and drink, so I'm going to grab my tins. And I think that should be, in fact, I'll grab some bar spoons as well. This is an egg white drink, and what I'll do is I'll talk you through some of the interesting aspects of working with egg white as I'm making this. But yeah, it's going to have egg white, it's going to give it a nice froth, a nice foam, and as ever, I'm going to start with my cheapest ingredient, or most sort of risky ingredient, and that is going to be egg white. So, this is a little herb jar that I've got half full of egg white right here. I made a meal the other day, it needed egg yolks, and eggs are quite hard to come by in the UK at the moment. Most of the supermarkets during lockdown seem to be running low on eggs. So what I wanted to do is make sure there's zero waste. I made a meal the other night, required 2 egg yolks, so in here I've kept 2 egg whites. An egg white doesn't actually have a quantity, it's not a standard measure, so what I'm going to go for is 30 ml. So 30 ml of egg white, it's going to give us a really, really nice froth. So some tips when working with egg white. We're basically making a foam. Anyone who's made meringue or anything like that knows that if you beat egg whites, what's going to happen is they're going to start to aerate and they're going to foam. Certain things will work against you in this endeavour. So what we're trying to do is just introduce air into the egg white to make a light foam. Things that will stop you from doing that is using cold or too fresh eggs. So basically, these have been kept in the fridge purely to keep them preserved and safe to consume. I took them out of the fridge about an hour ago just so they're cooling down because the albumin starts to thin when it gets cold. Also, really fresh eggs have a very thin albumin. That's the technical term for the white. So if you're going to be mixing or making a foam with egg white, try and avoid your freshest eggs. Obviously, this is going to be consumed raw, so don't pick any eggs that are, weeks and weeks old. But your very freshest eggs will not make a very good foam. Other things that will sort of work against you when trying to shake an egg white drink is any fats, or egg yolk even, so any fats or anything like that that get inside this, or oils, they will sort of make foaming a lot harder. Things that help, actually water doesn't help either, so that's why we're going to do what's called a dry shake. If egg white gets too wet, it's going to be quite hard to foam that egg white. So that's why you shake it without ice first to try and encourage that foam, and then shake it with ice afterwards to cool it down. That's called a dry shake, followed by a wet shake. So a dry shake is a shake without ice. So those are things that will stand against you. Using too fresh or chilled eggs won't work very well. Using too much water and getting either oil or fat inside of this is all going to stand against you when making a foam. Things that will help you, copper helps. Now, you'll see a lot of bars use copper-plated barware. That's copper-plated, so it doesn't really have any real effect. What it does mean, well, actually, it doesn't mean anything, to be honest. Copper barware is a bit like a false promise. So that doesn't count for us, that's not going to help us. A whisk will help, so that's why I'm going to drop a little spring into it to act as a whisk. And also, conveniently for us, having citrus inside of, a little dash of citrus inside egg white will help you make a better foam. Normally if you're cooking, you don't want your foamed eggs to taste like citrus, so you'd have to use as little as possible. Good news for us is we can use quite a lot, because we're basically making a citrus drink. So that, 1 ounce of egg white, some pro tips when working with egg white. Next, we're going to use a real small amount of sugar. It's a simple syrup. We're going to use a real small amount of this purely because this stuff is sweet as anything. We don't want to go over the top. What this will do is just add a little bit of lightness to the citrus, but we don't want to use too much. So what I'm actually going to go for here is just 5 ml. So that's 2 half teaspoons there. 5 ml of sugar. Next up, we're going to want a whole 30 ml of lemon. So this is going to be a fairly citrus drink. 30 ml of lemon. Next up, we just want 22.5 ml of our bourbon. This is an overproof, so it's going to give quite a bit of a kick to this drink. So we just want 22.5 ml of this. And then finally, the main event, the Amaretto, is only going to contain 45 ml. So most of the drinks I've been making on this this channel, I guess, they've contained about 60 ml of the predominant spirit. Because we've added so much by comparison of bourbon, we're going to reduce this to just 45 ml. The overarching flavour of this drink will no doubt be Amaretto. We're not going to lose any of that flavour, but what we're not going to do is we're not just going to make it way too sweet. So 45 ml Amaretto. Grab some ice, get this shaken down. I'm going to serve this in a little rocks glass. I'm going to serve it over ice. So what I'm going to do is, in fact, no, first I need to do my dry shake. So grab this spring from, here's a little sort of whisk, or you can use the spring from the back of your Hawthorne strainer. I'm going to drop that in there. And the first dry shake is going to encourage this drink to make a real nice foam without losing any of it to any of the cold or the wet of the ice. That's looking good to me. Fish that spring out. And then let's get this shaken. So what I've done here is just prepared my little iced rocks glass to serve this straight into. This next shake, you're going to dilute the drink. Water is an incredibly important ingredient in every cocktail we enjoy. But also just chill it right down. That is looking good. So like I say, an Amaretto Sour, a real guilty pleasure of mine. It's a fantastic drink, it's delicious. The only downside is it's really difficult to limit yourself to just one. These things are far too tasty. So let's see how this foam's turned out. So fine straining this drink just to get the ice shards captured. That is looking good. Suggested garnish for this drink is a little bit of lemon, and optionally, to go all out on the sweetness, we're going to also use a cherry. So, first job, just get myself a nice bit of lemon peel, and this beautiful citrus aroma is going to be what welcomes the drink up first. Place that just in there. And next job is to find a nice cherry. So I've already mentioned these things previously. These are Luxardo maraschino cherries. These are also incredibly sweet. This is going to be the sweetest. Oh no, my hands are covered in syrup. This is going to be an incredibly sweet drink. So if you kind of personally really like sweet flavors, this will be the cocktail for you. Place that just in there. Perfect. There we have one very, very delicious Amaretto Sour. So if you're kind of looking for you want to drink a cocktail, but you're kind of feeling a bit more of a sweet tooth, or perhaps, more of a dessert kind of flavor profile, I would wholeheartedly recommend the Amaretto Sour. It's not a classic, there isn't much history to it, but my God, it's good. Cheers. Perfect. So I'm going to leave that just over here. I'm going to rinse some bar kit really quickly, and I'm going to talk to you about a daiquiri, because a daiquiri is actually a really, really fascinating drink. So if you give me a real short moment, I'll be back in a second. So I'm willing to bet that most people who've heard of or had a daiquiri, perhaps not most, that might be a bit judgmental, but a lot of people will associate daiquiris with crushed ice, slushy kind of drinks. Kind of very refreshing summer, a bit like a frozen margarita. That's a specific type of daiquiri, a frozen daiquiri, which is actually a bit of a remix on the very original daiquiri. So what a daiquiri contains is just three very, very simple ingredients. It's going to be simple syrup, a nice white rum. Here I'm using Veritas, and lime juice. Those are the only three ingredients you need to make a proper shaken daiquiri. So the daiquiri, the history is, it was invented somewhere near the turn of the 20th century. And daiquiri is actually named after a beach and I think an iron mine in Cuba, right? There's a beach and an iron mine called Daiquiri. So it's believed that the daiquiri is actually invented by a US mining engineer. We don't know that for definite, but it's the current best guess. It was invented by Joseph Cox, I think. I probably got that wrong. But fascinating thing about the daiquiri, which I only learned recently, it became really popular in the 1940s. And that's because during the war, getting a hold of other spirits, whiskey, certainly scotch, vodka, really hard to get hold of. But because of trade agreements, sort of peace agreements between North and South America, getting hold of things like rum was actually really easy. So daiquiris were on the menu for a lot of the World War II period. So they weren't really popularised until much later. Despite being invented in the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was the war, well, World War II, that made this drink popular. Now, if you're following this because you're a web developer like me, you'll be all too familiar with the sort of fetish of doing whiteboard coding challenges, right, when you go for job interviews. The daiquiri is often going to be the equivalent thing for a bartender. There are only 3 ingredients in this drink, so there's no way a bartender would forget what the ingredients are. The key to this drink, because there are so few ingredients, it's all in the balance. So it's a good way of just judging how good someone is very quickly. Hey, make me a daiquiri. And if they can balance very tart with very sweet without overpowering the deliciousness of the rum, they're onto a winner. Now, of course, a lot of it comes down to the discretion of the drinker. So if you prefer your drinks on the tart side, you would prefer more lime. Sweet side, you want more sugar. There's generally a good spec to follow for this. This daiquiri is one of my favourite drinks for a very specific purpose. You know, you just like finish maybe a long day at the office and you want a drink, but you're not really sure what you want. You don't want to just go and get boozy, but you want something nice. What I will normally have is I'll have an ice-cold daiquiri. A daiquiri needs to be enjoyed within the first 20 seconds of it being served. It needs to be freezing cold. A daiquiri just cuts through the day. That citrus feels like almost a citrus cleaner. It kind of cleanses you of the day. It's refreshing. It's not a very boozy drink, so it's not going to get you feeling drunk. It's just a really good drink to kind of wash the day away. The second reason I enjoy the daiquiri is because it's a fairly ubiquitous universal drink. Every bartender knows how to make one. So if I'm ever traveling and I find a new bar that I've never been to before, or they've got their own sort of custom menu of things that I want to try, normally what will happen is I will say to the bartender or the front of house, I'm going to look at your menu, but while I'm reading it, can I please get a daiquiri to just consume while I'm seeing what I want for real? This does a couple of things. It means I get a drink in my hand pretty quickly, but also it gives me a good, and this is pretty horrible of me, I guess, but it gives me a good gauge of how good that bar is. Because this is such a Goldilocks drink, we want to make sure that, right, if they can balance this, I'm going to trust them with all the rest of it. Right, enough talking, let's make one. Oh, another thing I neglected to mention, these slushy daiquiris that you might be, kind of a strawberry daiquiri, for example, that you've probably seen on menus in the modern day, that is actually more similar to how a daiquiri used to be served. A daiquiri used to be served a little bit like a mojito, so rum over crushed ice. No mint, but still got the lime and the sugar. So it actually started off as definitely a more crushed ice drink, but then it morphed to be a more classic style drink served straight up in a martini glass, cocktail glass. So actually, really, these slushy daiquiris are more of a throwback to history than you might assume. Alright, so the balance of the perfect daiquiri. It's going to be pretty sugary, it's going to be quite sweet. Lime's very, very tart. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use 22.5 ml of sugar. So don't drink too many of these, right? Your teeth will fall out. 22.5 ml of sugar, so it's quite a lot. Next, we're going to have 30 ml of our lime juice, freshly squeezed. Citrus only really lasts in the fridge for about 3 days, so basically you have to buy your citrus fairly frequently if you want to keep it fresh. Once it's squeezed, you need to refrigerate it, and it's going to last you about 3 to 4 days before it starts to go past its best. It won't be bad at all, it won't be bad for you, it won't be harmful, it's just not going to be as good. And what I don't want to do is put a load of really nice rum in with some slightly not perfect citrus. That's 30 ml of the lime there. And finally, it's going to be 60 ml of the rum. So we're coming back to those kind of proportions where the backbone of the drink, the spirit of the drink, is coming back up to 60 ml. So I have changed which rum I use for daiquiris quite a few times. There's a really beautiful white rum from Diplomatico, a really beautiful white rum from Methuselah. If you're just making drinks for loads of friends and you're not really bothered about anything fancy, just something like Havana 3 is more than good enough. However, my friends at Latitude here in Leeds, the sort of wine and liquor merchant that I use, they got me onto Veritas. Never had it before. I actually know very little about it. But basically, it's Barbudan rum from Barbados, not Barbuda, from Barbados. Yeah, and it makes a fantastic daiquiri. You're going to be using 60 ml of this. And what I'm going to do is, again, I've got my mixing tins, my shaking tins, so this is going to be a shaken drink. I'm going to serve it straight up, which means without ice, in a cocktail glass. Tricky thing, what you notice there is I've spilled a little bit. When you're pouring clear spirits, it's really hard to see just how high the sort of liquid level is on your jigger. And I've spilled a bit there. So, yeah, get this shaken down, get it served. All right, here goes. Let's get this shaken down. Another thing I really love about the daiquiri is just the colour of it. We associate lime with a very bright green, but obviously lime juice is actually quite a muted, kind of whitey, creamy, with a hue, kind of slight tint of green. It means the daiquiri itself has this really icy look about it. Look at that, just beautiful. This is a drink that needs enjoyed cold. Probably shouldn't admit this, but one of my really good friends, he's the manager of possibly my favourite restaurant in the world. He's the guy who taught me the phrase, a daiquiri is dead after 20 seconds. So me and him, if we go out for a drink together, there's every chance you might see us ordering a couple of daiquiris that we basically drink within 20 seconds just before we get onto drinking properly. But that is looking perfect. So, two very different drinks there, both shaken. Oh, I'm in heaven. That is so good. Both shaken drinks. One incredibly sweet, the sort of Amaretto Sour. It is delicious, but it's going to be very, very sweet all the way through. This is the perfect balance of sweet and citrus and booze. On the back of your tongue, you're going to get the kind of mellow, almost buttery aspects of the rum. And towards the front, you're going to get that citrus, that sour, that tart from the lime. A daiquiri is an absolute classic. This is what you'd refer to now as a classic daiquiri. The frozen kind is specifically a frozen daiquiri. I would recommend the next time you're at a bar, if it's a busy bar or you just want to get a drink while you're waiting to meet a friend or whatever, just ask your bartender for a classic daiquiri and enjoy. Thank you very much.